Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to your news edition. These are the headlines. The President of the Republic, Abdelmajid Tebboune, Supreme Commander of the Armed Forces, Minister of the National Defense, offers his condolences to the family of the martyr of the Master Caporal Ammar Saifuddin, who fell on the field of honor during a research operation in the military sector of Tipaza. The Africa Trade Gateway digital platform, the result of the cooperation between the African Import-Export Bank and the African Continental Free Trade Area, aims at facilitating the trade procedures. France is going through a dangerous political crisis following the defeat of François Bayrou at the vote of confidence. And in Morocco, the citizens are still suffering marginalization, and the normalization policy worsens the situation. Welcome back. It is with deep sadness that the President of the Republic, Abdelmajid Tebboune, Supreme Commander of the Armed Forces, Minister of the National Defense, received the sad news of the death of the Master Caporal Ammar Saifuddin, who fell on the field of honor on Monday during a research operation in the municipality of Beni Mellek in the military sector of Tipaza province in the 1st military region, an operation that allowed the elimination of 2 terrorists. On this occasion, the President of the Republic presents his sincere condolences to the family of the Master Caporal and to the members of the PNA, praying Allah Almighty to bestow His mercy upon his soul. In this sad circumstance, the Army General Saïd Chengereha, Minister Delegate to the Minister of National Defense, Chief of Staff of the People's National Army, presents on his own behalf and on behalf of the whole staff of the PNA his sincere condolences to the members of the family of the Shaheed and expresses his deep compassion, praying Allah Almighty to grant them courage and to bestow His mercy on the soul of the martyr. This ongoing operation allowed the elimination of 2 terrorists and the recovery of a FMPK type machine gun, a Kalashnikov, a pair of binoculars, and other objects. This operation reiterates the determination and the vigilance of the PNA in the fight against terrorism and against any kind of criminality. It also reflects the efforts of our armed forces to maintain peace and serenity across the national territory. Economy now. For the 5th day of the 4th edition of the Intra-African Trade Fair, Algeria keeps signing partnership conventions, notably a $2.5 billion investment agreement between the Algerian Agency for Investment Promotion and the Egyptian company El Swedi Electric. The agreement aims to create an industrial investment base to transfer the knowledge and technology and to develop the electrical infrastructures. 2 other important export agreements have been signed between the company Algérie Ham Motors and that produces motorcycles and partners in Tunisia and Chad with a value of $1.2 billion. Still with the IATF to discuss the products that attracted the visitors, including Africa Trade Gateway digital platform, a product resulting from a cooperation between the African Import-Export Bank and the African Continental Free Trade Area, whose objective is to provide services, secure payments, and also promote African trade. Details with Adel Bahri.
As Africa looks for stronger ways to boost intra-continental trade, one innovation is drawing attention at the IATF 2025, the Africa Trade Gateway, a platform built to secure payments and simplify transactions. This is a great chance to connect African companies. For example, if I'm an investor and I want to work with a company in Africa, I can find all the company's details on the platform. The African Bank team has already checked the information. Today, more than 25 African countries and many big banks are already part of the African Trade Gateway. Thanks to this, 2 African countries can trade using their own local currencies. Example, an Algerian company sells jackets on the platform. A Nigerian buyer pays in Naira. The system then credits the Algerian supplier in Algerian dinar. This is very interesting because the payment system can be used anywhere. The platform builds a strong business ecosystem by linking key players and making cross-border trade in local currencies easier, cheaper, and more focused on Africa itself. There are many advantages. Financial services companies can operate across African countries more easily, while Africans are encouraged to trade with each other and avoid exchange rate losses through direct use of local currencies.
C'est extrêmement intéressant la manière dont la plateforme ne cherche pas
This is extremely important. The platform doesn't remove barriers but helps to go around them. Africa is one continent, but it has 54 different countries, each with its own system. Any tool that helps reduce these barriers is very welcome. With the Africa Trade Gateway, Africa now has a modern and reliable tool. It's worth supporting and exploring for new business opportunities.
The chairman of the IATF Advisory Council, Olusegun Obasanjo, highlighted Algeria's role in the success of the fourth edition of this fair, especially the Algerian efforts in the reinforcement of the economic cooperation between the African countries, affirming that the AFCFTA is an important step towards the economic complementarity. We'll listen to his statement.
I think I will go back to what I said. Over the past 8 years, we have had four editions of IATF. And each edition has been moving from one level to a higher level.
Sure.
Let me take my time to acknowledge the effort that the President of Algeria People's Democratic Republic has put into this. Even a month ago, when I came, I had my apprehension. And the President said, don't worry, we will make this the best and the largest. And he has achieved that. In the interest, of course, of Algeria, and in the interest of Africa, and in the interest of global Africa.
The pharmaceutical industry, a key economic lever, brought together around 20 African operators at the IATF 2025 to foster cooperation and expand export opportunities for both national and African players. Najah Diyar with details.
Considered a valuable opportunity to establish strategic partnerships, the Intra-African Trade Fair saw the participation of numerous industrial players from across the continent in the pharmaceutical industry, and as any other industry operators, they seek business opportunities. Through these meetings, we aim to expand partnerships for the distribution of our products and to support African countries in their industrial projects. We are here at the fair to do business. We have signed contracts with South Africa, Nigeria, Ethiopia and Kenya. We look forward to concluding more contracts. At the moment, contracts worth $400 million have been signed. By September 10th, we hope to sign others, and this fair is a great opportunity for Algeria, which has significant potential. There are 645 pharmaceutical production units in Africa, 27% of which are in Algeria, that is 218 units. Algeria can be a driving force for Africa in this sector.
بكل تواضع الجزائر تقدر تكون هي لوكوموتيف أفريكان جنوب.
In terms of product quality and diversity, experts and representatives from the African countries believe that Algeria's pharmaceutical production is making fast-paced progress.
That within that dynamic, the pharmaceutical industry is growing and is the largest sector now in Algeria outside of oil and gas. So that's very good to hear. As we've discussed with people just before this, I feel like Algerian medicine can have a competitive space in Africa. But the biggest problem is that Algeria has been part of Africa politically, but it can do more when it comes to trade. And I think that there's a lot of opportunity for Algerian medicines to be very useful all over Africa and to have an impact, basically. So I think that there's a lot of opportunity there.
Thanks to the state's new measures, and as demonstrated at this year's IATF, Algeria's pharmaceutical production, particularly in terms of export operations, has been steadily developing in the recent years.
A bilateral cooperation agreement in the health sector has been signed on Monday between Algeria and Uganda by the Minister of Finance, Abdelkarim Bouzerd, and his Ugandan counterpart, Matiak Saija, with the presence of the State Secretary in charge of the African Affairs, Salma Bakhta-Mansouri, and the General Director of the National Agency for International Cooperation, Abed Hallouz. This agreement aims at facilitating the tax, administrative and custom procedures between the two countries. And the State Minister of Energy, Mines and Renewable Energy, Mohamed Arqab, received on Monday the Russian Vice Minister of Energy, Roman Marshavin, and his delegation to discuss the ways of reinforcing the cooperation between the two countries in the sectors of energy, mines and renewable energy. The two parties reviewed the development perspectives of the bilateral cooperation, reaffirming their devotion to consolidate the energy partnership, the exploitation and the development of the oil and gas industry in Algeria with the cooperation between Sonatrach and Gazprom. It was also the occasion to discuss the cooperation in the sector of renewable energy, notably the development of green hydrogen and solar energy. Arqab highlighted the importance of the strategic partnership between Algeria and Russia, reinforced by the signing of the Strategic Partnership Declaration between the two countries. The meeting was held with the presence of the State Secretary in charge of African Affairs, Salma Bakhta-Mansouri, and the Russian ambassador to Algeria. And tough times in France. The National Assembly has rejected François Bayrou's government, denying it a vote of confidence and opening the door to renewed political instability inside and outside the country. Details, Daniel Bahri.
François Bayrou wanted to give his full sense of history before the deputies. He contrasted daily squabbles with the responsibility of the future.
Political questions are those concerning parties, rivalries and power struggles. Historical questions are those concerning peoples and nations. He tried to rise above party politics and talk about history. But in a divided assembly, his serious words sounded like blame and stirred up anger. Your so-called courageous decision is in our eyes nothing more than pride. You must save President Macron. Thus you will be the fourth in 3 years to fall in order to spare the main culprit of our misfortunes. One after another, speakers from the left pointed in the same direction. Beyond Bayrou, they were targeting Emmanuel Macron, whom they accused of having led the country into deadlock. How could we trust you when you trust Emmanuel Macron? For you, the future does not exist, because you belong to an unpopular minority and hated past. Macronism now governs only through fear.
Détesté, le macronisme ne gouverne plus que par la peur.
The ecologists treated the episode as non-event, already looking toward the future, and used the opportunity to sketch out their own general policy.
Your departure is a relief, almost a satisfaction, if it were not accompanied by the uncertainty of what comes next. For the issue today is not so much your government as what will follow in the coming days.
For his part, Bayrou tried to dramatize the debt, describing it as a hidden wound that could weaken the nation.
Ladies and gentlemen deputies, it is a silent underground, invisible and unbearable hemorrhage.
Most Republicans backed Rotaillot's hardline, while Wauquier's support showed splits in his camp. The far right turned to the streets and demanded the Assembly's dissolution. Bayrou's promise to save the ship failed, and instead of making history, he leaves isolated and ready to resign.
In Morocco, social unrest persists as citizens face marginalization, poor infrastructure, and a normalization policy widely seen as a betrayal of the Palestinian cause. Mohamed Qais and Najah Diyar.
The Moroccans continue to endure bitter realities as entire regions remain isolated and deprived of drinking water and basic infrastructure, forcing the residents to survive in increasingly unbearable conditions. This social misery, which has been spreading for decades, is fueled by marginalization, the lack of prospects, and the loss of dignity. Today, it is further reflected in mounting protests over the rising cost of living and a normalization policy with a Zionist entity widely rejected by the people.
They are going to evict us from our homes without compensation. We will end up on the streets without shelter and without work.
In neglected regions such as Bni Mellal and Ouarzazate, misery remains alarming, and even the most basic needs are barely met. Under the grip of political and economic lobbies, a rapid impoverishment of the so-called middle classes has long been underway, while the working classes are losing all hope of escaping poverty and improving their living conditions.
If you go to hospitals and mosques, you find little kids filling water bottles and suffer taking them home because they have no choice.
The corruption of the elites, the arrogance of those in power, relentless repression, and the subservience of the Makhzen to the Zionist entity are worsening the Moroccan social crisis, a daily suffering that Moroccans continue to denounce as they demand dignity, social justice, and a better future.
And we wrap up our edition with football as Algeria faced Guinea this Monday for the 8th game in the qualifications for the 2026 World Cup. The match ended up with a draw as the two teams couldn't score. Algeria dropped 2 points but is still in the pole position with 19 points with a 4-point gap with Uganda and Mozambique. Algeria has 2 games remaining to ensure its qualification for the most prestigious football competition. And with this we come to the end of our edition. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being with us. Have a good night.